Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you very much for those of you following us online today. It is our nice time to conduct the Meet the Author webinar series. And today, we have pleasure to invite Professor Robert Aumann to join us today. And it is really our pleasure to have him with us today. And today, basically, we will have the opening remark given by the Vice President of Zhejiang University to warmly welcome Professor Aumann for your valuable time to join us today. And then that will be the interview session and followed by the discussion session. So that will be the 60-minute session. So first of all, I want to share my screen with all of you and play the video from our Vice President.
My name is He Lianzhen, Vice President of Zhejiang University and the Dean of International Campus. I want to welcome all of you to our Meet the Author webinar series organized by International Business School at Zhejiang University. Many thanks for those of you following us online today. First of all, it is our great pleasure and honor to invite Professor Robert J. Aumann. Thank you very much, Professor Aumann, and it's great to have you with us today. I really appreciate it. I'm very delighted to know that our Meet the Author webinar series has been successfully launched and conducted for 9 times since its inception in July 2020. In the past few months, we have had the pleasure to gather inspiring speakers working on a wide range of areas, and they are from London Business School, Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Wharton Business School, the World Bank, and the Columbia Law School. As the COVID-19 continues to spread around the world, universities around the globe are shifting to digital knowledge dissemination in an effort to keep the world connected. Zhejiang University, founded in 1897, is one of China's leading higher education institutions. In the past few months, we have been dedicated to building a platform for knowledge dissemination to produce timely and high-impact outcomes during the time of crisis. So I'm very glad to know Professor Aumann is willing to join us to support the initiative for knowledge dissemination. Meet the Author webinar series is part of the initiative at Zhejiang University to cope with challenges in 2020, and more importantly, to contribute what we can do together with the world. We also work with Cornell University and the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign for offering their undergraduates and the graduate students an opportunity to study with us on the international campus. It is another example of how Zhejiang University is trying to build a platform for knowledge dissemination both regionally and globally. I know today that Professor Ben Shenglin, Dean and Professor at Zhejiang University International Business School, and Chen Hongyi, Academic Director for Master of Finance, will join the interview and discussion session with Professor Robert Aumann in the next 60 minutes. I'm very excited for the session and all the best for today's event. With that, on behalf of Zhejiang University, I want to express our sincere gratitude to Professor Robert Aumann and your excellent team at Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Hope we have the opportunity to host either you personally or your team at Zhejiang University in the near future. Of course, members of Zhejiang University are also keen to visit you in Israel. Thank you once again, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Yes, so thank you, Professor He Lianzhen, and also thank you very much, Professor Aumann again. And thanks to technology, we have pleasure to connect with you to conduct this event in 2020. So really appreciate. So first of all, we know that you did a lot of research on Gannett theory. So for my interview question, the first one is really we want to learn from you about the game theory. Particularly, we learned from your speech before that economy and game theory in one word is incentive. So would you like to pick up a few examples to illustrate the idea?
Okay, very good. I'll give I'll start with, well, first of all, economics. Okay, let's talk about economics for a moment. Okay, economics is the basic idea of economics is incentives. Now, the incentives work in a market economy. And about 100 years ago, yes, they started in Russia to go away from the market economy, abandon the market economy, and go to a socialist economy. And this happened also in China at the end of the 40s, about 70 years ago, something like that. Yes, 75 years ago. Okay, a little more than 70 years ago. In China, the revolution at the end of the 40s, led by just a moment, please. Led by Mao Zedong, abandoned the market economy and went to socialism. Now, socialism is really a very good. The basic motto. The basic motto of socialism is to each according to his needs, from each according to his ability. And that's really a wonderful idea. You know, I subscribe to that entirely. It's a beautiful idea. Yes, because everybody has needs and everybody should get in accordance to his needs. And everybody should give to society in accordance with his ability. So it's a wonderful thing, yes, and I agree entirely with it. The only thing, there's one little problem with it. And that one little problem is it doesn't work, okay? It does not work. Why doesn't it work? It doesn't work because it does not give the proper incentives. If everybody knows that he is going to get according to his needs, yes, then why should he work? Why should he do anything? If the state is going to give him everything according to his needs, then he doesn't have to work, yes. And why should he bother to give according to his abilities? His abilities maybe is to do hard work. Why was it? Yeah, he doesn't. You know, if he's going to get according to his needs anyway, why should he do it? So that's an incentive, all right? Now, the Soviet Union realized this, and the socialism in the Soviet Union collapsed about a little more than 30 years ago. Okay. And in China, they were smarter. The Chinese people were smarter because they went to a market economy in 1979. So that's about 10 years before the Russians. Okay, and the market economy gives the right incentives. Okay. Now, what are the incentives? And they are: if you work, you get enough to live with. If you don't work, you don't get anything. Yes. So naturally, if people are ill or if people are incapacitated for some reason or another, the state helps out, but not as a principle, to each according to his needs. Yes. So that's an example of incentives in economics. Yes, incentives in economics is because the market economy, which China adopted in 1979, it gives you the right incentives. That is one example. You want another example? I'll give you an example from game theory if you wish, but if you want to go on with the interview, go ahead.
Yes, of course. We would like to hear another example from you.
Okay, we'll give another example from game theory. So this is when I was young, a child, really. Yes, I have one older brother. That's it. No sisters. And in China, that's a lot already. Yes, 2 children is a lot. But in the Western world, usually there are more children. Often there are more children. But I had just one older brother. Okay. Now, when we were children, we didn't have a lot of money. Okay, my family did not have a lot of money. We got very good educations, but we didn't have a lot of money. So once in a while, there was some kind of treat, a candy bar or a chocolate bar, something like that, which my mother decided to give to the 2 children and to divide it between them. So she took the chocolate and she divided it into 2, okay? She broke the chocolate into 2, and she gave one part to my older brother and one part to me, okay? And sometimes the children were happy, but it happened pretty often that one child was dissatisfied. He said, I got the smaller piece. Yes, you should have given the bigger piece. My brother got a bigger piece. It's not fair. And there was crying and tears, and the children were upset. And this my mother didn't like this, because she had to, a treat for the children. She meant it to be something that the children would enjoy, yes, and not that they should be crying. So she was a game theorist, yeah, and this was before game theory was published, okay? She was a game theorist, and she said, you know what? I am going to give you incentives to be happy. How does she give the 2 children incentives to be happy? So she said, she gave the chocolate to me, and she said, Bob, you break it into 2, okay? Not me. And then your brother, Moshe, will choose one of the 2 pieces, okay? So this entirely changes the situation, all right? It changes the situation completely. Why? Because then I have incentives to break it into as close as possible 2 parts, okay? And so my brother certainly doesn't have any incentive to cry, because he got to choose, all right? He chose, so he can't be unhappy, yes? And I don't have any incentive to cry either, because if I divide, if my brother gets the bigger part, then my mother will say to me, why didn't you divide it equally? It's up to you, yes? So that is another example of incentives, and yeah, there are lots more, okay? But let's get on with the interview. There are lots more. Just now, the Nobel Prize in Economics was given 2 or 3 weeks ago, okay? I think it was October 12th, to 2 friends of mine, good friends, yes, 2 people I know, and it was given for using incentives in auctions, okay, or in tenders, public tenders, to get the best deal for the for the government that's giving the tender, and that's another. So that it was given a few weeks ago for 2 game theorists, friends of mine. Okay, so, lots of incentives. Incentives is the name of the game. Incentives is the name of the game in game theory and economics. Yeah, right. Okay.
Right. Thank you very much for Professor Aumann to give us very vivid image for how to imagine the incentive. And I think after many audience listen your story that between you and your brother, probably the conflict is getting reduced from now on. The very good measure. So thank you very much for that. And the next one that we would like to get your perspective on the rationality. Given rationality is also another very important concept for economic. So what is your definition of rationality? And do you see any conflict between rationality and what happens every day in our daily life? For example, can racial or gender discrimination be rational? Can strike be rational? So let's also get back to our topic today. Can war be rational?
Can war be rational? Okay, yeah, right. Yeah, okay. So I have to give you my definition of rationality. And the definition of rationality is not the usual one that is common in everyday life. The definition of rationality that's commonly accepted is thinking scientifically, thinking logically. Okay, that is rationality. Yes. Just a moment, please. Okay, fine. The definition of rationality that's used in economics is that people pursue their goals to the best of their knowledge. I mean, given their information, the information that they have, they try to do the best that they can to reach their goals. Okay, so let me give an example of that. One of my students gave a very good example of that. He said that suppose a black cat crosses your path, okay? A black cat crosses your path and you spit. All right, is that rational or is it not rational? Okay, so now, according to the common definition of rationality, it's highly irrational. I don't know how it is in China, but in the West, a black cat crossing your path is a sign of bad luck, okay? But you can avoid the bad luck by spitting, all right? Now it's foolishness, right? It's highly irrational. It's a superstition, okay? It's something which has no basis in fact. But according to the definition of rationality that's used in economics and game theory, it's highly rational. The person is acting very rationally because he believes in this superstition, okay? So in accordance with his knowledge, it really will bring bad luck if a black cat crosses your path. And therefore, the best you can do to avoid the bad luck is spitting. That's also a superstition. But you are promoting your goals. You believe in this, right? You believe that it will. So that is highly rational. It's one of my students gave an example. It's a good example because it catches the notion of rationality. So now you ask, can racial and gender discrimination be rational? Okay, can war be rational? Okay, so my answer is yes, yes, it can be. But we have to try to change the information that people get in order to give them an incentive, not to engage in gender or racial discrimination, okay? In order to give them an incentive for this, you have to, let me give an example from gender discrimination, okay? Suppose a young lady comes to me, or comes to somebody else, not to me, all right? And I want a job with you, okay? What kind of a job you want? I want to be your secretary, okay? Now I say, now the employer, the prospective employer says, are you married? Okay, so so the young lady could say yes. Okay, how long have you been married? So she says, we've been married 1 year. Okay, do you have any children? No, we don't yet have any children. That's what the young lady said. So the employer will say, well, you know, I'd rather take an older lady, yes, because you are liable to get pregnant, okay? And then you will get a child, and then, no, even during your pregnancy, you may not feel very well, and you may be absent from work, and I need my secretary, okay? So this might lead to gender discrimination, all right? Because men don't get pregnant, all right? As it happens, men don't get pregnant, all right? So this is a situation where you have to do something about this. You have to change the incentives in some way. Frankly, I don't know what to do about this particular thing, but this is, now you ask, can strikes be rational? Okay, now, yes, strikes can be rational. Why? I'll give you an example. Okay, at the Hebrew University where I work, there was a strike of the faculty. This was a long time ago. It was 30 years ago. Okay, there was a strike of the faculty. It began in the beginning of December, and usually these things are settled. Usually these things are just a moment, please. אני צריך את הדלת פתוחה מפני שבגלל בבקשה תדברו בשקט. כמה זמן? עד מתי? 3. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, there's one of the disadvantages of Zoom, yes, that there are people, you do it from your home and there are other things going on in your home, okay? So they just close the door, but that changes the lighting and it's no good, okay? So I beg your forgiveness. Okay, so we had this strike and the strike lasted a long time. Usually it's settled fairly quickly, but this was not settled quickly, and it dragged on and to December, January, and it got to the middle of February. And there was a big danger that the whole year, the whole academic year of study would be lost, okay? And there was a big danger of this. So then there was, in the middle of February, there was a meeting of the faculty, and the meeting of the faculty got, we had to decide, the whole faculty of the Hebrew University had to decide whether to continue with the strike or not. And there were about 400 or 500 people there, okay, the professors at the university. And they said, and there were a lot of speeches that said that we are professors at the university and we have to give an example, and from this we have to be, we are not allowed to, we have to be loyal to our students, and it's not right to strike, and it's true that we're not getting enough money, but we should not, we should give, we are better than other people, and we should not, we shouldn't do this. And then there was at the end of many speeches of this kind, there was a vote, and the vote was that about 480 people voted to go on with the strike, not to end it, and 6 or 7 people voted to end the strike, and then the rest didn't vote, okay? Something like that, okay? So a very big majority voted to go on with the strike, and then the university settled within 2 days, 2 days, okay? So what was going on over there? What was going on was that the strike was necessary to show the will of the professional of the professors, of the staff of the university, to show that they are determined to continue the strike. Okay, they're determined to get and the will of the people. This could not be demonstrated before. It could not be demonstrated in December already. The strike was necessary to show the other side that that the staff of the university is determined to get its way. Okay. Yeah. So this strike was rational. All right. Now you ask about war. Okay. Now you ask about war, and just a moment, please. Again. Okay, I'm terribly sorry. I'm terribly sorry about this. That's the disadvantage of Zoom. It has lots of big advantages. You know, you can talk with all over. You don't have to travel, but it has its disadvantages also. So war. Okay, war is the same thing. War. You know, I think in the case of war, I think most wars are a mistake. That doesn't mean they're not rational. People who go to war may be rational. Let me give an example. All right. The Korean War. the war in Korea, which lasted between Korea and the United States, which lasted, North Korea and the United States, all right? North Korea and the United States, it lasted for 3 years. And it was due to a mistake. And the mistake was that the North Koreans did not realize that the United States would defend South Korea from an attack. The United States did not make that clear, okay? The United States, when there was the tension just before the beginning of the war, the United States did not make it clear that it would defend South Korea. If the United States had made it clear, okay, there were all kinds of words which could be interpreted in 2 or 3 or 4 different ways, and it was not clear that there would be a defense. So if it would have, in fact, the North Koreans were led to believe that the United States would not defend the South Koreans, okay? And therefore they attacked. That gave them a reason, because that's the incentives I was talking about. It gave them a reason to attack because they thought the United States would not defend the South Koreans, all right? So it was rational for the North Koreans to attack. But then it was also rational for the United States to defend the South Koreans, okay? To jump in, because the United States could not afford to lose South Korea to the communists, yes? And I don't know whether you gentlemen, you look very young to me. Maybe Mr. Hong Yi looks really young, and Professor Ben Shenglin looks fairly young, but I don't know whether you remember the Cold War. The Cold War between the West and Russia and the East, yes? This was a very serious affair, okay? This was very serious. It never came to be a hot war, but it was very serious. And if the North Koreans had an incentive to attack because the United States did not make it clear that it would defend South Korea. And the United States had an incentive to defend because otherwise South Korea would fall to the communist bloc, okay? So they were rational on both sides, okay? They had an incentive, and you want another example? I'll give you another example. World War II. World War II was a mistake. Yeah, what was the mistake? It was a big mistake. In other words, it turned out not as the people had planned. What do I mean by that? In Munich in 1938, okay, I was already alive, but you were not alive then. And I don't know whether you know about the history, but in Munich in 1938, Hitler, who was the leader of Germany, said that he insists on getting part of Czechoslovakia. Afterwards, it turned out it was all of Czechoslovakia. But at the beginning in 1938, and in the spring of 1938, I think it was March of 1938, there was a conference in Munich, which was attended by Hitler, by the leader of Britain, it was Chamberlain, and the leader of France, the president or the prime minister of France, Daladier, and Hitler said, look, I want to get this part of Czechoslovakia, and this will be my last demand. He had all kinds of demands through the 1930s, and all the time the Western, Britain and France gave in to him. And they said, now we're not going to give in to you. So he said, this will be my last demand. I don't ask for anything else. So they said, sign this paper that this is your last demand, okay? And he signed it, okay? And that was the Munich Agreement. And Chamberlain came back to London and he said to the British Parliament, he said, ladies and gentlemen, I have brought with me peace in our time. Now, what he brought was not peace in our time, but what he brought was the Second World War, okay? Why? Because Hitler realized that whatever he asks for, he's going to get, all right? Whatever he asks for. So a year later, he entered, a year and a half later, in September of 1939, he entered Poland, okay? And he expected that Britain and France would do nothing. Okay, he entered Poland and he expected them to do nothing. And therefore he had an incentive to enter Poland, okay? He had an incentive to do this. He was rational in doing it because he expected them to do nothing. And the reason for that expectation was the behavior of of Britain and France, who capitulated in Munich a year and a half earlier, all right? So that was the reason for his expectation. And so I say Hitler did not bring World War II. Chamberlain brought it by giving in to Hitler in 1938. You know, I can prove that Hitler did not was surprised when the Allies went to war on September 3rd of 1939. He went into Poland on September 1st of 1939, okay? It took the Allies 2 days, the French and the British, 2 days to declare war, all right? And they didn't go in until September 3rd, 2 days, okay? Now, and the reason is that Chamberlain, even at that point, wanted to give in to Hitler. But his government said, no, we're not giving in to Hitler. We're not giving in. This is the last straw, okay? And they phoned the British ambassador in Berlin, and they said, inform the Germans that we're going to war with them, okay? And the ambassador went to the foreign minister of Germany, von Ribbentrop, and he told him, we're going to war with you. And von Ribbentrop phoned Hitler, and Hitler was furious. He said, they cheated me. They cheated me in Munich, okay? He was furious. He didn't expect it, okay? So this was people don't make their intentions clear, okay? Or they make them clear, but it's the wrong intent. If they don't act in order to motivate the other side to act in the way that is good for you, if you don't motivate the other side, then you get war. So war is rational, okay? Hitler went to war, he was rational, and the West went to war to defend the West, that they were also rational, because otherwise Hitler would have overtaken the whole world. That's it, okay. So I hope I answered your question about rationality.
Yes, very clear, and also very good to connect the history and also economic together. And it also remind me, because last year I had opportunity to take the flight, and the flight was canceled. And the other passenger sitting next to me act very angry and tell the flight company, if you don't pay me the 5-star hotel to let me stay overnight to take another new flight, I will maybe shout to you. And then finally, eventually, let irrational people get 5-star hotel. But for me, facing the flight cancel, I just can sleep in on the bench. So I think sometimes irrational behavior can also show our strong, how can I say, determination to the event or to the activity.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Thank you very much, Professor Aumann. So the next question, as you know, that Zhejiang University is located in Hangzhou, and we have the companies like Alibaba or Ant Financial, which is really use a lot of artificial intelligence. So last question, we talk about rationality. So generally, we are discussing the rationality for decision making. As we know, artificial intelligence is becoming popular and applied to many sectors in the real world. So do you think that artificial intelligence or AI could help human being or our society for better rationality? What is your perception on that? The question.
Okay, yeah, I got the. I think, you know, I think, well, why not? Yes, I think artificial intelligence is very good for it's very useful for all kinds of things. Yeah, I think I'm not sure about making better decisions, but I think it's something very, very positive. I mean, you know, in playing chess,
right.
The chess playing machines were developed more than 20 years ago, and they became better than the best chess players in the world. So now this is something which is very, very common at the and after all, in international relations, we are also playing a kind of game of chess. Yes. So this is very, I think, very helpful in this. But there is a new development in artificial intelligence, and we were just talking about chess. So let me say what artificial intelligence was doing in Go. Okay, now you know the name of the game of Go. I think it's popular in China, right? The game of Go. And the game of Go was not amenable to analysis by artificial intelligence until about, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. Okay, and at that time, at that moment, artificial intelligence developed a program for playing Go, which now succeeds in winning the best against the best Go players in the world. Okay, and it has done this by a way which is called deep learning. Now, deep learning is different from the algorithms that were used in developing chess playing machines. It's essentially different. Let me try to explain what the difference is. In the algorithms that were used to develop chess playing machines, the analysis was made really, one went a number. If black does this and then white does that and then black does this and white does that, and then we get to a certain situation, and then the machine looks at all the moves that you can make, okay, and chooses the ones that are best at that point, that look best. There's some kind of way of measuring how good a move is, and then you take the best move, and you do this entirely explicitly, okay? You choose the best move explicitly. In deep learning, you don't do that at all, okay? In deep learning, what you do is you try various kinds of move, and you see, you try them in accordance with some kind of algorithm, and you see what works well better in practice. You don't evaluate the moves in theory, like in the chess playing machine, but you evaluate the moves in practice, okay? And in other words, what works best, yes? Not, and you have no idea why it works best. You don't understand it at all, why it works best. But you look at what works best in practice, all right? So this is something which is now has become very common. It's applied to Go, but also to playing Go, but also to much more common things like recognizing pictures, recognizing who this person is. Yes, you show a picture, all right, and then you apply the algorithm, and the algorithm will tell you this is Mr. Hongyi Chen, okay? So, and how do they do this? So they do this by looking at various thousands of different pictures of Hongyi Chen, and then and mixing it up with all kinds of other people, and then using some kind of algorithm which will pick out what works best, okay? Now, we don't have any idea why this algorithm works, but it just works. It's you know, it's not as simple as that, okay? But this is not the place to explain the nitty-gritty of it. In any case, I think artificial intelligence, in particular deep learning, but also many other aspects of artificial intelligence, I think it has a great future. I think it has maybe it could make decisions, okay, but I think it is better. I'm not sure of this, okay, but it is better in helping you, giving you the information, okay, giving you the information on the basis of which you make your decision. You remember my definition of rationality? It's to pursue your goals given your information. So how do you get the information? You get the information with artificial intelligence. And then you make the decision that you think is best for you on the basis of this information. So the person who spits when he sees a black cat, yeah, if he applies artificial intelligence, they're going to tell him, first of all, black cats don't bring bad luck, and second of all, spitting doesn't help, okay? So they would get that information, and then he can act rationally on the basis of the information, okay?
Right. Thank you, Professor Aumann. Indeed, we still have plenty of questions for you, but due to time constraint, with that, I want to turn to the discussion time, and we will invite Professor Ben Shenglin to join us together. So that Professor Ben, that we know that you work for financial and economic, and also in the last few years you work on fintech. So we will also like to get your perspective. How do you think on the rationality and also incentive, and any feedback or discussion with Professor Aumann? So Professor Ben.
Okay, thank you, Hongyi, and I just want to echo what Professor Aumann just said about AI. How could that potentially improve rationality? I think people are making decisions based on rationality. AI is given the information that they can have, I think can potentially improve the decision-making process for rationality. So indeed, it could enable and empower the rationality and especially the decision-making process. Whether it will be better or worse, it depends on the algorithm and many other things as well. But Professor Aumann, I just want to ask you one question, probably, if I may. I'm an economist by training. I also had my PhD from Purdue University in economics. I must say, in the last 26 years since I graduated, the reputation of economists as a profession seemed to be mixed. People sometimes, they call themselves economists when they work for, say, investment bank in Wall Street. They would predict how the exchange rate is going to move and how the stock market is going to move. And of course, the track record has been mixed. So what's your impression about the economists as a profession and their reputation, how they may be able to really contribute to the real life? When you gave a few examples how economists can help the world, especially help the world become a better place. So maybe you could share with us a couple of proud examples. You are really proud that what you learned, what you did, was helping the real world better. I hope that I answered the questions clearly. Okay.
All right. I think it seems to me that as far as economics is concerned, in general, we'll get to game theory in a moment, but as far as economics is concerned, I think with the work of John Maynard Keynes in the late 30s and early 40s, I think we got a better understanding of macroeconomics. And I think in the period following World War II, the economic world was much more stable than it had been before that. We never got into a situation like the business downturn that started in 1928 and ended up in, it didn't end really until the war. It lasted for 10 years. Yeah, it's called the Great Depression, okay? The Great Depression lasted for 10 years, okay? Until, and the world did not come out of the Great Depression until World War II. And a war it gives an incentive for business, and that brought the world out of the Depression. But until the war, the world did not come out of the Depression. We never had anything like that after after the Second World War. Until today, we've had nothing like that. We've had some business downturns. We had a very severe downturn in 2008, and there were one or two others before that. But the world came out of these things pretty quickly, okay? And that is because people started to develop the ideas of Keynes and other ideas, so that the central banks, before that, the central banks did not act in a way which was fitted to the to what should happen with the economies. But afterwards, the central banks started working to oppose trends which would destabilize the economy, and it worked pretty well. I think even the downturn of 2008 was because of it wasn't foreseen by economists, maybe, but economists were able to counteract it, and it ended pretty quickly, within a year or two, I think. I think mistakes were made, and we understand what brought this about now. And I think the economic world is much more stable than it was before we applied principles of economics to it. Now, if you want to talk about game theory, okay, in particular, then we just had a Nobel Prize in game theory. I mentioned that before. Yeah, I think I did mention it. And this is these people are very successful. You know, there was the Spectrum auction about 25 years ago in the United States. The Spectrum auction, they were the United States government auctioned off wavelengths, okay, frequencies, electromagnetic frequencies to be used for cellular phones, and the people who won the Nobel Prize, they developed, and also other game theorists, not only them, many others, developed methods for doing this in an optimal way, and so that has become very useful. And there was also a Nobel Prize in 2012 for market design, and so I think there have been a lot of successes of game theory in designing, okay, market design, designing markets, and in designing things like auctions, designing other devices. So I think it's, you know, would I suggest you to become an economist? I think you should. I think if you're an economist, I think you chose well. It's okay. People, I think let me put it this way. I think it does help the world, just like many other things help the world, medicine and science, engineering, the economics helps the world. Yeah. Okay.
And thank you for that. Just one quick one. You know, you talked about market design. China has become a market-based economy. We have done a market design well, but no Chinese has won. No Chinese has won Nobel Prize in economics. When do you think a Chinese economist might win a Nobel Prize?
You know, I don't know. I don't really, in the last 10 or 20 years, I've really stopped following closely what's going on in the world. But I have to say, I have not heard of, unlike in other areas where the Chinese are very, in other areas of science where the Chinese are very, some areas the Chinese are very prominent. I have not heard of a prominent Chinese economist who could become a candidate for the Nobel Prize. But this could be because of insularity, you know, it could be because in the West we hear more about the West than in China you hear more about China, yes. So this could be maybe the corona pandemic will start to tear that down because we can talk more easily to each other, you know. When the people in the family are not interfering, we can talk more easily to each other on Zoom than having to travel from place to place in order to talk. So thank you very much. I think China is a great country. I've been to China at least 10 times, and I think it's a wonderful place. And thank you very much for inviting me, and it's been my pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Ben. So may I add one last question, if that Professor Aumann, your schedule still allow?
Excuse me?
So may I add one of the last question for you?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So it is an uncertain year we are experiencing in 2020 because of COVID-19. And many people, many of my students, they feel very anxious for their future. So based on your experience in the last maybe 90 years, how would you like to advise those young people to think about their future?
Well, I'm optimistic about the corona, the COVID-19. I'm optimistic about that. This will, it's been a great interference in life, but it also has its good sides. Like I said, I have been able in the last half year to talk to people all over the world, just like I'm talking today, much more than before COVID-19, because the COVID-19, it used to involve a trip abroad, yes. You don't get invited to a webinar. I mean, there were webinars, but they were not nearly as popular as they are now, okay? Now it's really quite common, so I speak 3 or 4 times a week to people all over the world, and that helps communication. So that is a silver lining that the COVID-19 crisis has brought. I think this will end. I hope in a few months. I don't know, but I think a vaccine will be developed. Vaccines are being developed in the United States, and there's also one that's being developed in Israel. Maybe there's also one in China, I don't know, but I know about Israel and the United States. So there are several different vaccines are being developed, and I hope the pandemic will end. So I think that should not be something which young people should take into account. My advice to young people in general is do what you like. In other words, not do whatever you like. You're like, drinking just wasting your time. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, study whatever it is that you like for its own sake, not to make money, all right? Not to earn money, and not because your parents told you or your teachers told you or the Communist Party told you or whatever it is, yes? Not because of that. Do what you like. Why do I say do? In other words, study or engage in the productive activities or study whatever it is that catches your imagination. Why? Because when you like it, then you're going to be good at it. And when you're good at it, you're going to like it, okay? So you want to do something that you're going to be good at, that you're going to do well, all right? And that is the most important thing. If you do it well, then that should be the, you know, there's one thing I did notice about China. I've told you that I've been in China about 10 times. Yeah. In China, I think they are very good at engineering, at applications of science. Okay. But there is less basic science in China, as far as I recall, okay? People are less interested in the theory and the basis and the science that underlies engineering. And I think that could be developed in China. But maybe it is being developed now because I haven't followed what's going on. I haven't been in China. Actually, I was in China last fall, just about a year ago. Just about a year ago, I was in China. Yeah, I think I think Chinese young people in China should go more into basic science, science which has, on the face of it, no applications, okay? No immediate applications, all right? Don't worry about doing something which will make money for you or which will improve life. It doesn't have to improve life. It just has to interest you. That's my advice.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Aumann. I think that's very important to our audience and also myself, of course, as well. So really appreciate for your valuable time today. And as far as I know from my colleague, today we have 22,000 people following us online. So really appreciate for your sharing knowledge and to make this happen. And I think that will be really beneficial for those of people that wish to join this kind of international conference, but due to pandemic, they have opportunity. They don't have opportunity to go abroad. So really appreciate for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And
Professor Aumann.
Yeah. So Professor Aumann, hope we have pleasure to host you in China once again in the future. And I hope we have pleasure to meet you, maybe not in China, but in Israel in the near future.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're heartily welcome to come here. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you once again for bringing us a lot of really very good knowledge. We really enjoyed the conversation with you. And also thank you very much for Professor Ben.
Thank you, Hongyi. Bye-bye, Professor Aumann.
Have a good day.